Blood and butchery, dark depths and perilous heights, a delight of terrifying frights. Things that go bump in the night, creepy crawlies, ghastly ghoulies, nasty necromancies, swaying skellies. It's Halloween night, and what better sight than scenes of blight, of blood and bone and doom, doom, doom! The hour grows late, so gather around for a tale of dungeon delves and tragic fates, of undead hordes, lost relics of ruin and more, and most of all, of sweet, sweet viticality. Hello, greetings, and welcome to a special episode of Morrowind Modding Showcases. I'm your host, Dark Elf Guy, and today we'll be diving into the dark-filled depths of horrors of one of Morrowind's largest dungeon mods, the Caldera Priory Depths of Blood and Bone, by none other than the champion of the crypt, the dungeon daddy of Morrowind, the architect of viticality, Sealoth, and also his many minions. A dungeon delve for the ages, Caldera Priory is an adventure of death and decay. A dungeon of crypts, caves, realms of oblivion, and so much more. It is the largest dungeon mod of 2023, and a perfect mod to play on Halloween. And for all that we'll be showing off here tonight, know that this is only a tiny fraction of what Caldera Priory has to offer. So, better strap in, lads, lassies, and NBs, for this is going to be a wild ride, and viewer discretion is advised. Our tale begins in Caldera, in that place where all good adventures start, in a tavern, where the sole survivor of the Caldera Priory has a story to tell for any who would listen. It's a dark tale of a seemingly normal night, turned into a nightmare of blood and gore, lost friends and comrades. Should you be brave enough for the task, she'll offer you a quest, one of discovery and vengeance, to find out what happened to the Caldera Priory, and to exterminate the evils within. The ruins of the Caldera Priory, once a way station for weary travelers, can be found north of Caldera, a group of dilapidated buildings surrounding a well, the old chapel tower overlooking the road. From the outside, all appears calm, but the evils lie within, perils waiting behind every door. The chapel, a crypt, dark tunnels beneath, from the sinister skittering of things with far too many legs, to the shambling of undead monstrosities. You'll have to look and fight your way through the shadows beneath the priory, to discover where these fiends came from, and to find the object of your conquest, the dreaded butcher, a bloated form of bloody gore, wielding massive cleavers, a grotesque towering figure, a twisted smile on his face, one with so very many teeth. Surrounded by blood and bone, the bodies of countless victims that came before. This is your first boss fight in the ruined halls of the Caldera Priory. And while it is only the first, it is a challenging fight, complete with a bit of new voice acting and a pair of new weapons to reclaim should you prevail in your encounter. Once defeated, the first part of your quest to reclaim the Caldera Priory is complete, but it's hardly the end of your journey. These bloodied halls and dark tunnels are only the first steps into the deep, dark abyss. For there is always more below, down and down into nightmarish realms beyond reckoning. The second part of your quest begins when you investigate the well underneath the Caldera Priory, the source of the undead. And to unravel the mystery of their origins, you'll need to climb down, following gradual stepping waterfalls down and down, to a crevice into a dark cavern. Cold rocks and underground streams lead you along branching paths in this underground domain. But you're not alone in the dark, for undead horrors will leap out of the black, ready to attack. Through twisting passageways, you'll explore cavernous chambers with yawning chasms, sudden drops that lead down deep into the depths of none, with waterfalls that reach into the heavens. A dark maze of glowing lichens, mortal chambers linked together in this cavern complex, with giant spider nests and corpses of long-lost adventurers, alongside more sinister discoveries. For deep in the darkest parts of this cavern, you'll discover a portal into oblivion itself, a yawning flame in the dark, surrounded by the undead hordes. Across this vast scene, bodies are piled high, seemingly reaching for this nightmarish portal. Perhaps the results of some long-lost battlefield, or perhaps the creation of some sacrificial ritual. Either way, the dead still stir, and you'll have to fight your way through, facing skeleton legionnaires head-on and archers above. A challenging fight, but only one of many, for much more lies beyond this portal. And here at last we get to the meat of Caldera Priory. Such a deceptive name. A name to disarm you for the epic vistas that await. For once you jump through the portal into oblivion, you'll be greeted with a realm of fire and ash, of endless pools, streams, falls, and rivers of lava, of grand verticality on an unimaginable scale. Before you lies a ruined path. Pillars and rubble guard the way, with great piles of bones, skeletal fingers pointing you towards your goal. Up and down, the path twists along this great lava river in this mysterious fiery realm. And it just keeps on going, with more and more battles through the face, and dead hordes, liches, skeletal archers raining arrows from afar. And I'm sorry, I have to pause here. Can we take a moment to appreciate the absurdity of the sheer scale and size of this dungeon interior? This is all one interior cell. And at the halfway point, you can't see the end of it, or the beginning from whence you came. And at this is with distant land enabled. And still, I can't see the end. This is one of the largest dungeon interiors I have ever seen. And you know what's truly insane? What's really crazy? It's not even the only one of this scale in this mod. For as we'll see here soon, Caldera Priory has more massive interiors just like this. I mean, sweet Hakatosh, the verticality, the atmosphere, the great heights, the perilous depths. All of this is precisely why I call Sealoft the Dungeon Daddy of Morrowind. And there is no one else better at designing dungeons. I mean, with all this grand scale, you'd expect this dungeon to suffer from a lack of detailing. But no, it's the exact opposite. There is so much detail, so much environmental design just lovingly put into every nook and cranny of this gigantic, massive, enormous interior. And that's true for each and every part of this sprawling dungeon complex. Not only are there giant lakes and rivers of lava, but there's massive mausoleums and crypts, rocky chasms that you can wander down for ages, great spires to climb, and at every turn, an epic vista to rival the greatest dungeon delves of the ages. And of course, these ginormous interiors hide side quests for you to do, and ancient lost treasures for you to find, relics from some lost age, and glorious loot to hoard. The size of these dungeon environments are just absolutely staggering. You'll go from fighting across bridges over lava-filled ravines to maze-like mausoleums, scattered with the remains of thousands upon thousands of bones, with skeletons seemingly reaching out from the walls. And no, really, I mean that literally. Here's a close-up. There's actually skeletons reaching out from the walls. And that is just an insane level of detail. Everywhere you look, everywhere you turn, there's something new, some intricate amount of design, some creepy horror from this demented dimension of oblivion. And even in these tighter passageways, these dungeon cells are staggeringly large, with countless hallways and crossroads, a maze at the end, with more and more unsettling surprises around every turn. It is incredibly easy to get lost in here, and I can safely say, even though I spent hours playing this mod, I didn't see everything. There is so much stuff in here that is so easy to miss. So easy to get turned around. So easy to get lost in the dark. And yes, by the way, I would strongly recommend bringing some torches or maybe some mage light spells. Some of these crypts and caverns are pitch black, and you'll want to be well supplied with weapons, spells, and potions. Now, you might be thinking, with so many large dungeon environments, why, we must be close to the end, right? Surely there couldn't be even more. Yes, there is. I told you there were more of these gigantic caverns of glorious, eye-watering, majestic verticality, and there are. A cavern so vast it disappears into the distance, the bones of some gigantic beast wrapped around great pillars reaching into the heavens, grand spires to slay. Wait, did I say slay? I meant climb. No, I do not have an addiction. I can quit anytime I want. But, maybe one more round of Slay the Spire after this. It's so much fun, you know? But, anyway, the verticality here is simply mesmerizing. And far from being a linear, one-path-through chamber, there are multiple side passages for you to take, and hidden things for you to find. And this chamber is ridiculously massive, more an entire region to explore than a single dungeon. And just look how high up we are, and still these spires and bones reach far up into the sky. Sweet merciful heavens, if it isn't just one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever paid witness to in Morrowind. There is so much to take in here. Sealoff is an absolute genius of dungeon design, quite possibly one of the greatest dungeon masters of all time. And speaking of things to take in, just take a look at another one of these epic dungeon chambers. The scene here is fantastic. An island surrounded by lava with a dead tree where skeletons hang. It's quite the visual. Now, you might be thinking, but where's the verticality? Well, let me cast a light on that, for this is no simple square chamber. It has height. A few well-placed mage lights, and you can see what was once hidden in darkness is actually a massive dungeon, with level upon level of mezzanines overlooking this central chamber, each a dungeon floor, each containing opponents for you to fight and sweet treasures for you to loot. Now, you might be wondering, of all these massive environments, how's the performance? Well, it works better than it should, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a bit of a performance impact. Here, let me just show you some unaltered gameplay footage, where you can clearly see the frame rate is at about, I don't know, maybe 15 FPS? At times, I thought my computer was going to melt from rendering all these complex environments. But surprisingly, this 15 FPS is the worst it ever got. And most of the really big, visually vast dungeon interiors were actually, surprisingly, pretty FPS friendly. I'm honestly not sure how Sealoff does it. And this really is just a huge mod. You might not be able to tell, because obviously we're cutting a lot of things out for the sake of keeping this video showcase to a somewhat reasonable length. But I took hours and hours of video footage of Kadir Priory. I think the final bill was about 7 hours of gameplay footage. It is an insanely huge mod. And while that does include some backtracking and testing, I probably spent at least, I don't know, maybe 3 to 4 hours just, dungeon delving. And that was with a cheat character. I didn't fight everything, I didn't explore everything, and I wasn't looting anything. If you were to play through this with the aim of actually completing everything, oh sweet 9 divines, I think you'd be looking at maybe 6 to 7 hours of content. There is a lot here. And obviously, you should pack a lot of equipment. Because you'll really need it. Again, weapons, potions, torches, repair hammers, arrows, and ammo. This is a high-level dungeon with a lot of difficult fights. And it'll test even the higher-level characters. Now, a quick warning for spoilers, if you'd rather just avoid seeing the final boss battle, just skip ahead now, because I do want to show off just a smidgen of the final boss encounter. It's too cool not to show it off a bit. And I believe even Sealoff has, shown a bit of it already. After delving for devil knows how long, you'll come face to face with the Skeleton King, the master of this realm, complete with a bit of unique voice acting and an animated entrance, as you can see here.
It begins in blood. It ends in bone. Fall. Pathetic. Tremble.
After you defeat the Skeleton King, you'll get his mace and his armor. A fantastic looking suit of heavy metal, ideal for the warrior adventurer. Complete with a borderline anime oversized mace to complement it. And there's also more content with the Caldera Priory, as it'll be restored with new characters, new dialogue, new restored interiors that you'll get to explore, new merchants, and a new player home, by way of your own loft apartment in the Caldera Priory Manor. To say the least, this mod is jam-packed full of exciting action and content. It's got quests, it's got verticality, it's got horror and terrifying encounters, it's got verticality, it's got epic boss battles, it's got verticality, it has a unique soundtrack, it's got verticality, new weapons and armor, and new verticality. It is an absolute triumph of a dungeon mod. Sealoff's best work to date, and not only a contender for the best mod of 2023, but a contender for one of the best mods of the decade. If you haven't played it yet, I can think of no better way to spend Halloween, or really any day, than diving straight into the dark verticality depths of Sealoff's masterpiece. It is an exquisite experience, and one that I really can't recommend enough. But that's it for today, so, as always, I've been your host, Golf Guy. Thanks for watching, stay safe, stay healthy, happy modding, and I'll see you all next time.